Dun, dun, dun.
7 o'clock, the meeting will come to order. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Here.
trustee McDonald.
Here.
Treasurer Pierce,
Treasurer Pierce is excused and we wish him a speedy recovery.
trustee Kessel,
Here.
trustee Shipley,
Present.
clerk Slater here, supervisor Lesper.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Is there a motion or discussion for approval of tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Sport.
It's a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have no presentations this evening, so this brings us to the first part of public comments. We have a full agenda this evening, especially with the budget. So we ask that you please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And then this is the time to comment on anything on tonight's agenda. So welcome.
Maybe I was supposed to wait till later, but anyway, I just wanted to let you all know that there was a deer killed in Burton Park with a bow and arrow by a hunter of some sort. Jim McDonald's building grounds crew found it yesterday. We're hopeful that the cameras that we've installed for the deer count will give us some information on who the hunter was, what was going on. And I'll keep you posted, but I just thought you'd like to know that.
Thank you. Is there anyone virtually wishing to comment, Ms. Brott?
Any one of our Zoom participants would like to participate in this public comment regarding anything on the agenda, please raise your hand. If you're participating via phone, please dial *9. I'll wait 1 moment.
Article 6, approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion or discussion?
Motion to approve. Support.
There's a motion to approve the consent agenda by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Shipley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, financial actions. Let's take this separately. Items A through C. Any discussions or a motion to approve tonight's financial actions, the first 3 items?
Motion to approve. Support.
It's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Shipley to approve items A, B, and C under financial actions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article D under financial actions, consider fiscal year 2022 budget amendments. This one requires a roll call. Ben, are there any comments you want to?
So almost all of these are things that were addressed by the board during the year, so. Financial commitment that wasn't in the budget at the beginning of the year, so this really is just the end of year to get those in order. It looks very unbalanced. There's a lot of additional revenues and not a lot of additional expenditures. That comes from a couple different things. One was the influx of constitutional revenue sharing that we got. Not only did we get our increase, but we got a year's retro pay of increase as well, which significantly increased the amount of revenue there. Of course, we took our bond out for the fire station. We had to account for that. We got nearly $2 million or over $2 million in ARPA funding. We had to commit for that. So if you look through that, there's a significant amount of revenues. Of course, there's some expenditures in there as well, but significantly more revenues.
Is there discussion or a motion?
Move to approve the 2022 budget amendments.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
People out there, this township is very stable financially. And one of the reasons is because of the hard work that Ben and also the township board puts in and just makes us that much more healthy for next year's budget. So without any promises, but once again, no taxes increases for anybody, so. That's all I have.
That is support.
That,
That's a support, sure, why not?
it's a motion by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the fiscal.
It was McDonald.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley, to consider fiscal year 2022 budget amendments. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley,
Yay.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. New business, Article 9, first item, 092-2022, special assessment warrant resolution for the year 2022. Manager Swayze?
Yep, so this is I'll say a housekeeping item that we do each year. So we have several special assessments in the township, including the streetlight roll, the water and sewer assessments, our delinquent sewer and water usage, the Laramie Lake Special Assessment and the Thornapple River Special Assessment. So they're listed out there in the resolution. In order for us to collect these, they need to be warranted by the township board each year.
I make a motion to approve the warrants and bring these resolutions into the rest.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald, to approve the special assessment warrant resolution as written for 2022. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yay.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Item 093-2022. Planner Hillbrands will give us the overview about the 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and then we'll open it up for public hearing, any public questions or comments.
Thank you. Included in your packets is the final draft of the revised 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan for Cascade Township. The document was produced by the Parks Committee, working closely with Township staff and our consultant, the Troy Group. And I believe Mike Reese from the Troy Group is also joining us via Zoom tonight to help answer any questions you might have. As a quick recap of how we got here, the Parks Committee began the creation of the plan back in fall of 2021. The process included a public open house as well as a survey that was sent out to gather input from residents, which received close to 1,000 responses. A draft of the plan was brought before you back in October, after which we opened up a final 30-day public comment period for the draft plan, which also included another public open house as well. The input we received as part of that comment period was incorporated into the final draft, which is in front of you this evening. The highlights of the plan include the final goals, which I include there in my memo, as well as a very detailed year-by-year action plan to ensure that the initiatives from the plan are being followed up on. And I know that the Parks Committee is eager to start working on a number of those initiatives. The Parks Committee reviewed the final plan at their December 6th meeting and recommended that the board adopt the plan. So at this meeting, we are required to hold a final public hearing for any comments on the plan. And after the public hearing is held, the board can then adopt the plan at this meeting or any subsequent meeting. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on the final plan.
Brian, would you take just a minute to highlight some of the most important parts of the plan?
Sure. It's one important part too, and for residents who want to review the plan, is that there is an executive summary too, to be helpful, so people don't have to read through, 60 pages of this. So on the 6th page there, if residents want to take a look, there's a nice executive summary to summarize kind of the process and input, and then the goals that come out of it as well. So a lot of this are requirements that the DNR has, so to meet their DNR grant requirements, a lot of this background and township information. And then we include summary of the survey that was taken as well. And then probably the most important part is the goals and objectives sections near the end of the plan there. So we have 9 goals that come out of this, and each goal has strategies and then action items that will be followed to help implement those. And so then, as I mentioned, the Troy Group summarized all of those into an action plan. So there's a action plan going forward, and then it breaks it down by year as well. So in 2023, the Parks Committee can review that and go through the action plan, kind of check off those items. A couple large items we'll be looking at is one is the Parks Committee is looking into hiring a Parks Director. That's something they'll be looking at the job description and see how that would fit as well. We're looking at doing a master plan for Cascade Rec Park itself, since we have so many amenities there. That's our most popular park. So we really want to take a look at that and see if there's areas that can be improved, what amenities might be needed. And then there's discussion of exploring a parks millage moving forward. So that's something we'd look at in the next year or two as a way to fund our parks going forward.
So by adopting the plan, this is a concept and then everything that takes place will come to us first.
Correct. Yep. Again, the Parks Committee is an advisory body, so they make recommendations to this board for final approval.
Thank you.
Brian, I have a question. The parks is about number 2 on priorities that our citizens in all the surveys say that they're interested in.
Mhm.
Did you receive any negative comments on parks?
We received, I'd have to go back and look through the survey line by line, but I know we received some comments of saying, oh, maybe we don't need amenities here or things like that. I'd have to go back and check. I can't imagine one that would come out extremely negative, saying, oh, we too many parks. I think there's some that maybe people would say, we have enough parkland. I'm sure we got a few like that. We definitely got more of wanting to maintain what we have and possibly acquiring more. But, yep.
Maintaining what we have, much like the pathways, makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, and as long as we have a plan going forward with any additional land that we acquire, we need to show that there's a need for it.
Mhm.
And that we have a plan on how to meet that need for the residents.
Sure.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Any other comments or just questions?
I move to go into public hearing.
Support.
It's a motion to enter public hearing. All by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are now in public hearing. So anyone wishing to ask questions or comment on the parks plan is welcome.
Good evening. Rick Brown, Cascade Woods neighborhood. I have hiked Cascade Peace Park probably hundreds of times. I have been very frustrated by the lack of erosion control. This woman, this chair of your Parks Committee deserves a gold medal. Her plan, her initiative, her desire to improve that park alone is monumental. She deserves a gold medal. So something will be done. When I think about the parks director, I like that position. I had not thought of that earlier. But when that proposal came up, I thought, if you want to promote the use of the parks and even the pathways more, a parks director could come up with some great ideas. The pathways are highly utilized, but they'll be more utilized after you listen to what's going to be forthcoming. But a parks director, I think would be a great idea to encourage utilization of our beautiful parks and pathways more. Amen.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to comment virtually?
If any of our Zoom participants would like to participate during this public hearing, please raise your hand.
Is there a motion or further discussion?
I got one other comment. Thanks for your comments on the parks. We now also have a resident engineer on the township staff. And he's a dynamic young guy, so I would encourage the Parks Committee to engage with him wherever necessary, especially in erosion control, because he probably has. Oh, wonderful. I will now be quiet.
Move to close public hearing.
There's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think it's trustee Ship.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't talk that much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2022, the board will now consider approving the resolution to adopt the 2023 to 2027 5-year Parks and Rec plan. Discussion? Motion?
I think that there's been a lot of work put into this. It's detailed. Instead of just saying, gee whiz, we want another $70,000 for more park toys. And I make a motion that we adopt it, approve it.
I support. I think it's a great plan.
And I just want to make the comment beforehand that residents in Cascade overwhelmingly support parks, more different options for recreation and preserving our green space and character. This parks plan is very detailed with specific action steps, timeline. Our Parks Committee, especially Ms. Wani and a few others, just so much work went into it, so much thoughtfulness, and I think it's really going to bring the trajectory in the right direction. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for all your hard work. With that, there was a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley.
Other way around. Must trustee Shipley supported by.
I really
Okay.
don't care how you put it down.
I don't either, but just to be official.
I'm just going to make Chrissy work. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yay.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Clerk Slater. Yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Article 094-2022. Amendments to the fiscal year 2023 Township fee schedule. That Manager Swayze?
Great, thank you. So we all know that the board from time to time reviews and amends the various fees of the township. And this year we have 2 departments with proposed fee structures. So the Parks Committee has recommended some modest fee increases for the rental of certain township properties. And I included a detailed memo in your packet detailing that. And if you have any questions about that one, Brian Hilbrands will be happy to answer those questions. So the cemetery team also reviewed the current cemetery fees and are recommending some increases based on the comparisons with neighboring communities, as well as the cost of the work that's associated with those fees. So some of the communities that were surveyed include Ada Township, Byron Township, Cannon Township, Grand Rapids, and Kentwood. So the resulting fee increases will put Cascade in the mid-range for the related fees. But I did want to note that Cascade is the only unit out of all of those that does not have a fee for the actual purchase of the cemetery lot. So I included the memo from the Parks Department regarding their fee schedules, as well as a proposed park reservation fee schedule and the cemetery fee schedule. So these proposed fees really haven't been changed in the past 10 years. And doing incremental increases like this ensures that not only are we recovering the appropriate revenue for the use of the parks and cemeteries, but make sure that we don't have to consider larger fee increases when issues or large expenditures arise. We'll note that the park fees continue to be pretty modest, but the Parks Committee is looking at recommending improvements to our rentable assets. And at that time, the Park Committee may recommend further fee increases in the future. So with the cemetery fees, we're ensuring that we cover the cost of the work associated with the fee activities. In addition, a portion of all the cemetery fees are transferred to the cemetery trust fund for future cemetery capital improvement needs. One last thing that I wanted to point out on both fee schedule, we are trying to bring all of the rest of our departments into the 21st century and accept credit cards. One of the things that we have to do is determine whether the township absorbs the credit card fees or if we charge a separate credit card fee. Both the cemetery group and the Parks Committee have recommended that the township absorb the cemetery and park reservation credit card fees as part of the increases to those fees. So that's similar to what we do in the building department. For taxes, for example, we're actually legally not allowed to do that. So if you pay your taxes with a credit card, you actually have to pay the additional credit card fee as well.
Are you asking for the board to weigh in on that issue tonight?
The credit card?
The fee, who absorbs it?
Yeah, so that's included in the proposed fee schedule. So if the board wanted us to charge the separate credit card fee, you would just need to make that in the motion that the credit card fee needs to be charged.
But right now, the way it's written, Ben, we absorb it.
So the way it's recommended and written, we would absorb it. Yeah. So we don't do anything right now because we don't accept credit
Sure.
cards for either of those.
I have a question. I don't know whether it goes to Brian or Ben. On our parks, the rec park in particular, do we know how much usage is by residents versus non-residents?
We probably do have that data. I don't have it in front of me. Our admin staff has all of that. I believe we see more residents than non-residents renting it. And then we do have those two separate fees for residents versus non-residents.
For the park?
Yep,
For the baseball field?
Yep, for fields and facilities, we have a lower resident fee than a non-resident fee.
As I'm looking on this, maybe I'm missing that because it says baseball field, $25 per day, $35 all day.
Correct, sorry, for the rooms, for the pavilions and gazebos, we have those separate fees. For just the fields, it is just one flat fee.
Because I'm sorry to, I don't want to belabor this, but one time we talked about this years ago and it seemed that at the time, the parks were used, the rec park, the fields and soccer fields by more non-residents than residents. And so if we're going to charge a fee, a differential, should we also incur an additional fee for non-resident uses of the facilities?
We
I'm just
could, I think
asking
we
a
see
question.
more reservations for the buildings than the fields.
Okay.
I think that's why it's not necessarily included in there.
Maybe Jenny has something to add.
The fields are horrible. And so there was quite a discussion on the Parks Committee about that needs to be our priority is to get them up to,
Snuff.
snuff, and that when we're charging a fee, it's worth the fee that you're paying. Cause they're just, I've not seen them, but Jim McDonald just says they're really in poor shape. So we've got to get them. So my recommendation for what it's worth would be, let us get a plan to you for improvement, and then we can talk about a different fee schedule
structure? Okay.
for that situation. Cause we do want to encourage our residents to
Yeah.
use them, but I just wouldn't suggest to anybody at the moment that
Okay.
they're using,
All right. thank
if
you.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Sorry, Brian.
Trustee
No.
Shipley?
Sure, I just have a couple comments. First of all, I don't like to see any increases in fees for our residents, but I understand that the maintenance fees increase. I would just caution the Parks Committee from assuming that additional increases or adjustments are gonna come automatic in the future if needed. You're barking up the wrong tree, because we're gonna look at each and every one of these requested increases or adjustments individually and say, hey, you haven't kept your promise about keeping the ball fields up to date. Why should we give you another plum nickel to do something that you're not doing? So that's all I have to say.
I think right now we're kind of giving it away, and non-residents and outside groups are getting to steal too.
I'm aware of that.
Trustee McDonald?
Brian, it's fine. Do we charge today for pickleball and basketball?
We do, but they're also, open for free play. Reserving it guarantees you a spot.
That's
So
what I thought. Okay,
Yep, so
that's
we
what I
see
thought. 'Cause
mostly
I know
free
we
play.
used to just drive up and
Yep.
play but if there's nobody there, you just play.
Right.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm that.
It's not a huge sum of money, but I guess my preference would be that the individual user absorb the 3% fee rather than the general public.
Yeah, it's,
But
from
leave it
our
up to
point,
them.
it's 6 and 1, half dozen the other. We just need to make the decision before the final credit card use is set up. And again, we have other, like specifically in the tax department, that legally we have to do that. And I was talking to some of my, it was about 50-50 whether they absorb that or it was charged as a separate line item. I don't think it'll cause a commotion either way.
And I also like the fact that they did a nice job of looking at nearby local communities and noted that we're lower than other communities. And they put all the examples in here, Kentwood and others. So that was really useful. So yeah, I have no problem with charging for the fee either, but I just want to know how it was written.
I think to keep it clean and simple, the township absorbing the credit card fee is probably gonna be the best bet.
Agreed.
I agree.
I make a motion to approve the 2023 Township fee schedule.
Support.
It's a motion by Clerk Slater, supported by Trustee Kessel to approve fiscal year 2023 fee schedule as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, not a big deal. Motion carried. Next item, 095-2022. Resolution of general fund support to the fire fund.
Right, thank you. So in June of 2004, the Township Board approved a resolution to place a fire protection services ballot proposal on the August 3rd, 2004 primary election for 0.58 mils. So the resolution contained a provision that read that the Township Board agrees that should a ballot proposal be approved by the electors, subject to the immediately following sentence, it will commit annually during the time the approved millage is levied a minimum of $400,000 from the Township General Fund for fire protection services. Such annual commitment may only be suspended by formal resolution of the Township Board upon a finding that severe economic conditions exist which would cause a budget deficit without such suspension. So that millage was approved and the board is scheduled to be levied through 2024. The Township Board's made the required appropriation each year the millage has been levied. So during a budget process in 2014, it was recommended that while the language said that it only needed to be suspended by formal resolution, that it should also be made by formal resolution. And we have done that process each year since 2014. So the prepared fiscal year 2023 budget indicates that severe economic conditions which would cause a budget deficit without such suspension does not exist. And the fiscal year 2023 budget's been prepared with a small use of fund balance due to capital improvements and one-time expenditures after the appropriation has been made. So the approval of the proposed resolution will appropriate those $400,000 of general fund support to the fire fund. And as I mentioned, the budget is prepared as such. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Maybe dumb it down real simply for the public, essentially what it means.
So it essentially means that not only do our residents pay the almost 1.3 mils for fire service, there's also $400,000 of general fund money that goes towards the fire department as well with this resolution.
Trustee Shipley?
For the public's information, back then, many years ago, there was a concern that millage was going to be imposed upon the residents and the general support from the Township General Fund was going to be revoked. That raised a lot of concerns with residents of this township. Thus, this is what this is about, to ensure that the fire department is not short-sheeted and that the residents are not hoodwinked. That's all I have.
I make a motion to support and approve the resolution of general fund support to the fire department fund.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the resolution of general fund support to the fire fund. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Item 096-2022. Do you want to open it up for public hearing first, or would you like to do the introduction, Manager Swayze? How about the brief introduction, then we'll open it up for public hearing.
I mean, you've seen my PowerPoint presentations before.
I know, that's why I said brief. This is just the umbrella paragraph, and then we'll get into the,
Yeah, very good. So, yep, I just wanted to take a few moments to talk about a few highlights of our fiscal year 2023 budget. Talking about the general fund, again, these are all of our funds that are generally covered by tax revenue, though there are other revenue sources in the general fund as well. So our general fund millage rate this year is 0.9588 mils. That has been rolled back slightly due to our Headley amendment. And again, that is the statutory trigger that makes sure that our revenues don't increase faster than the rate of inflation. So our original millage was 1.1 mils and has been rolled back every now and then. So for fiscal year 2022, our SEV is $2.2 billion. That's essentially half of the cash value of the real and personal property in Cascade Township. And our taxable value is 1.8 billion. And again, the difference between those two is to ensure that our revenues don't increase faster than the rate of inflation. So the taxes that we collect are based on the taxable value. As far as collecting real and personal property tax revenues, you can see that it's increased every year over the past couple of years, which means we're healthy. We're looking at about $1.7 million in general fund tax revenues. We collect almost $6 million in general fund revenues. So there's a lot of significant revenue sources that aren't general property taxes. As you can see here, right? So the taxes are actually, I don't want to say a small part, but a smaller part than they are in some other municipalities. So our general fund expenditures, looking at spending in the general fund, just over $6 million this year. A lot of that is associated with some one-time expenditures, including capital improvements and some studies and things that were included in the budget. And then our general fund balance, looking at a peak up this year. That's related again to that budget amendment that I was talking about with the one-time influx in constitutional revenue sharing catch-up payments. And I mentioned before that we're looking at spending a small portion of our fund balance for the fiscal year 2023 budget, again, to fund some of those one-time expenditures. If you look at our other tax funds, so our fire fund is just short of 1.3 mils. Our police fund is 0.4614 mils. Our open space fund is 0.2269 mils. Our pathway fund is 0.3468 mils, and our library fund is 0.1479 mils. You can see there on the slide the revenues that are collected based on those millage rates. So those are in conjunction with the general fund. Those are our 6 tax funded funds in our budget. So if you're looking at all fund revenues, so I will say I've removed the ARPA fund and the fire station number 1 fund from this graph, just because if those weren't included, it would have skyrocketed up based on some one-time expenditures. But looking at all our all fund revenues, absent of those two, looking at just north of $15 million in revenues next year. And then just shy of $18 million expenditures. And again, that peak in expenditures is due to a lot of one-time expenditures, capital improvements in the general fund, looking at significant investment in our pathways that we'll be talking about later in this meeting, potential renovation for the library. So some of those projects that we have been saving up money for coming to fruition, which is why you see the peak in expenditures for this year. And then our all fund balance, right? So peak in 2022 of just north of $24 million. In 2023, we're spending some of those funds on some of our projects. So I always like sharing these slides just so people know where all their tax dollars are going to, right? So when you pay your taxes to Cascade Township, not only do we collect taxes for our services that we offer, but we collect money and pass it on to the other taxing jurisdictions as well. So people don't have to go to multiple places to pay taxes. So these are the millage rates for a residential home with a principal residence exemption. I will note that this is in the Forest Hill School District because there's slightly different millage rates for the Caledonia School District and the Lowell School District. You can see ours is 3.4312. That's all of our millages added together. And you can see the rest of them as well. But I think that really ties well to this next slide, which is where does your money go, right? So if you took a typical Cascade resident house, $375 cash, $375,000 cash value, and the taxable value is half of that. You can see how much money you're going to be paying in taxes and where it all goes. And down here at the bottom, you have Cascade Township. If you added all these together, there's actually $5,803.28 in a tax bill. And of that whole amount, Cascade Township only keeps $643.35 for all of the services that we provide. The rest of that goes to all these jurisdictions, Kent County, the Kent District Library for the operation of the library system, the Grand Rapids Community College, and then the Kent ISD State Education and local schools all actually go to local schools. So the Kent ISD collects their money, distributes it to the all the schools in the intermediate school district. State education collects their money, distributes that to school based on their per pupil ration. So a lot of money goes to the school district when you pay your taxes, but $643.35, which is just over 11% of the money we collect, or 11 cents on the dollar, stays here in Cascade Township.
Ben,
Yes.
what is this is property taxes? Can you break down, why are we so fortunate? What makes our balance so high? Like what type of properties? Because we hear about industrial, residential, business.
Yeah, so we're the best of all of the worlds, right? So a lot of times you get into a community and they have, one industrial property that's propping up their tax base. For example, the community I came from previously, over 30% of all of our taxes came from one industrial provider. If you look at the top 10 taxpayers in Cascade Township, they still constitute less than 6% of our total tax base. So the reason that we're so lucky is because we have high-end residential, we have industrial, we have big commercial.
But what's the breakdown? Like, are we getting most, I think you had said before that overwhelmingly the income comes from high residential.
Residential, yeah. So I would say, I don't have the exact breakdown, but it probably comes close to between 60 and 70% comes from residential tax collections. And the rest comes from industrial and commercial and the utility.
The airport property, how they're located all but a small part in the township, do they pay any property taxes, like for example, on parcels that they are able to rent for income?
So if they were able to rent them for income and their non-aeronautical use, then yes, they would have to pay taxes on those.
And so that would start, because right now they're not. That's not the case.
So like, for example, there's tax associated with part of the FedEx building that's not used specifically for aeronautical uses.
Okay. Any others besides the little FedEx building on the backside?
I would have to review it with our assessor. There's nothing that comes to mind. And then, of course, you have the airport building itself, which is actually an island of the city of Grand Rapids in the middle of Cascade Township. So that adds another level to the issue, particularly when there was not personal property tax rollbacks. That's kind of solved itself, but that adds a level to it. But there's nothing that sticks out in my mind where there's a big tax contributor somewhere.
Ben, really, the bottom line of what you're saying is we're really fortunate. We have a very excellent and broad tax base. And we aren't susceptible to being, I don't want to use the word hostage, but we aren't dependent on 1, 2, or 3 or 4 businesses. We have such a broad base of residential and commercial and industrial that's really a good position.
And it's one of the key reasons why we're able to maintain a AAA bond rating because of that. So a lot of times the rating agencies will look at if there's a catastrophic issue, typically it comes to small towns, right? They're built around a Ford plant or a GM plant. If that plant closed, what effect would that have on the revenues of that community? And really all 10 of our top 10 taxpayers could close their doors and demolish their buildings and plant grass. And I don't want to say the impact would be negligible in the township, but we wouldn't be here, wringing our fingers on how we're going to pay the bills next year.
So the majority is high residential property values.
I would just say, we definitely have more high-end residential than most places, but the fact that the average value of a house in Cascade Township is getting close to $400,000.
Yeah, I just meant when we break it down, what types, residential, industrial, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So if we want to keep our property values high, make it a desirable place to live,
Exactly.
maintain it. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions you guys have about the budget.
Let's do public hearing. Is there a motion?
I move to go into public hearing.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel, to open public hearing on this issue. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any questions, comments about the operating and special fund budgets?
occupancy rate of the, that's for the residential. or
Oh,
this
can you
is
come to
for-
the microphone just so we can,
Oh, I'm
nope, you're good.
sorry. John Driscoll, Cascade Township. What's the occupancy rate of the businesses around here? Do we know that? It's like 70, 65, 70% or
So I
just
don't have.
a statistical?
Yeah, I don't have an exact number. The right place touts that the industrial occupancy rate in Kent County is 98%.
Okay,
So that's really kind of what they focus on.
okay.
Commercial is a little bit harder to track because businesses can go so fast. So anything that I gave you now would be anecdotal.
Yeah, tomorrow will be different. Okay.
That's a
cool.
good question for our economic development director. Can you
Yeah.
find out and get back to us?
Yep.
Just on Cascade Township.
Thank you.
Rick Brown, Cascade Woods. I never thought I would ever make comments to the township board. This is not my MO. But I've enjoyed listening to all of you, your comments, your devotion, relative to the, balance for the budget. When I was the CEO of Greenville Hospital and Gibson left, it was devastating to the community. Now, granted, that town was 8,500 people, reduced to 5,000 after Gibson left. You're not going to run into that problem. When I was raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana, when International Harvester left that town, huge hit. So diversification, et cetera, is key. And I just applaud all of you that what you're doing and what you're presenting here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person or online? Questions, comments about the budget?
If any of our Zoom participants would like to speak during this public hearing, please raise your hand.
Is there a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Part B, the board will now consider this resolution. Discussion?
Make a mo-
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to, before your motion, Jim, say thanks and compliment Ben. The role of a charter township manager is really administrative and managerial. And the budget process, I think, is probably the most critical piece of a township manager's job. And our job, the board, is one of, well, political, if you will, because we have to make decisions, hopefully based on the majority of residents' needs and requirements. But the township manager really has a tough administrative job. And we've thrown hundreds of questions at Ben all through the year in the last month. And I just want to say, thank you and compliment him for doing a great job on the budget, and he has every year. And it doesn't just happen tonight and end. It's all through the year, making sure that we stay within that budget or make the amendments as needed. So I think we're pretty fortunate. Thank you, Ben.
I just have one comment. I've asked several times and it hasn't gone anywhere, so maybe publicly it will. The city of Cadillac has a wonderful breakdown, just raw data of its financials, and I don't think we really have that on our website. We've got really important stuff coming up with parks and, the fire station and all that kind of stuff. And if we're going to ask for millages or different things, I think that right now we need to just have that information available for people to sift through. The very few people that will actually look at it and go into it. It's worth it, especially if we're doing as great as we say. We've got nothing to hide. It would be a treat. And I just remember when I started, I was given kind of a summary pamphlet that the board had put together back after the Township Hall fiasco. And it was basically how great we're doing and how great we use the money. And as an attorney, I want to see it for myself. I don't want to be told. So rather just raw data rather than everything's great AAA bond rating, just give us the numbers and the few people who want to see it. I want it on the website, and I just would like that to happen sooner rather than later.
Make it a priority.
It's the third time, so thank you.
I make a motion to call for a vote.
Make a motion to approve the budget.
To approve the budget, yes.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Kessel, to approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2023 Cascade Charter Township General and Special Funds Budget. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes, motion carried. Item 097, 2022. Consider the resolution to approve the intent to levy the 2023 millage rates. Manager Swayze.
So we just finished the fiscal year 23 budget process, and this is the first step in the fiscal year 24 budget process. So this is a initial resolution that the budget, that the millage rates will be set at the rate that they are for the 2023 budget. So what happens after this is that the county will go through their process that they go through, determine that if there's any millage rollbacks. Once that is calculated, you'll come back to the township board. You get a second stab at the apple to look at the millage rates. So if at some point you wanted to, you can't raise them because these are all the maxes basically. But if you looked at it and decide you want to have lower millage rates in the future, you have an option to do that in July.
I like that idea.
Discussion, motion?
I make a motion to approve the intent to levy for 2023 millage rates with the option of mid-year looking at them again.
Support.
So motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to approve the resolution to approve the intent to levy the 2023 millage rates. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes, motion carried. 098, 2022. Consider the 2023 pathway repair and maintenance program bids. We've got our new township engineer, Eric Thorne, here to go over it. And also we've got some members of the pathway committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I advertised bids last month for the Pathways Improvement Project intended for 2023 construction. At the request of the Pathways Committee, it includes the reconstruction of approximately 5.74 miles of pathways, primarily along Cascade Road and Buttrick Avenue. This was the first step of an intended several-year plan to reconstruct the entirety of the township's pathway system. The vision for this project specifically was a midsummer completion date, but given the current climate of contractor bidding and construction project scheduling, we wanted to leave it open to potentially push that completion date to later in the year. So I advertised the project for next year with two alternative bidding options, one with a June 30 and another with an October 27 completion date. I opened the bids on December 5 and we received 5 bids from different contractors. I estimated the project, as was presented to you before, at approximately about $1.85 million. 3 of the 5 bids for both completion dates, the early June one and the October one, were within 10% of that estimate. There were 2 bids that were lower. Those were provided by Ryerson Brothers and Brenner Excavating. Ryerson Brothers provided a bid only for the later completion date of that October 27, while Brenner Excavated providing 1 bid that was the lowest of all the bids for either date. And that bid was 1.39 million. For background, Brenner Excavating, completed a similar pathway project along Pettis Avenue in Ada Township last year. I have personally had positive experiences working with them in the Holland area when I worked there. I reached out to them specifically during advertising, hoping that they would put bids in, along with several of these other companies that did put bids in. So I do personally believe in them as a contractor and that they are capable of completing this job. The Pathways Committee reviewed their bid as well as the bids of these other contractors and the subcontractors that they are providing with their work. The recommendation of the committee to the board was to award the contract for 2023 Pathways Improvement Project to Brenner Excavating. At their bid price pending a positive review from Ada Township on that Pettis Avenue project. And Ada Township has since said that, yes, they are satisfied with the work that Brenner provided. And so I guess at this point, I'm willing to answer any questions, but that is what I have on the topic. Either one.
Will they go with the 6:30 or the 10:27 date?
it would be my intention to ask them to do the 6:30.
Okay.
And they, according to the bid, are obligated to fulfill that.
Thank you.
Couple of comments.
Mhm.
Number one, I'm all in favor of this because I know that that's what the residents want. And I would like to see it completed earlier than later,
Mhm.
but that's up to you and the resident and the committee. What I would stress is that you and the committee establish what the priorities are, which section you want to do first, based upon usage or whatever you do. You're a good young engineer. There's engineers on your committee. You might want to listen to them once in a while. And I also like to thank you for the job that you've well done.
Thank you. And I can happily report, it has been a discussion in the Pathways Committee to target what pathways are getting done in what order over the next 4 or 5 years. And there is an actual plan on paper, each year, what pathways should be targeted, and it includes every pathway in the township to eventually, again, in that 4 or 5 year period to be completed.
And go for it.
How long have you been here, Eric?
3 months and 2 days.
Who's
And
counting?
is there any part of the pathway that, I hope that's a good thing, meaning it's,
I'm
Is-
counting.
is there any part of the pathway you haven't walked?
No, I've walked every part of the pathway. Some of it twice.
The only reason not to gush over you is because I don't want you to get a big head, but I couldn't be fantastic. And then our Pathways Committee, we're all residents who reached out with genuine concerns and really love and use our pathways. They have been the biggest help. Just, as a board member, I am so grateful to everyone and you in particular who's helped with this.
Thank
It
you.
was biggest source of complaint, 2 years. You're here within 3 months, and the pathway committee is formed and all of a sudden, boom. And the grumpiest of grumpy people are happy. It's fantastic.
Happy to help. Pathway Committee has been a huge help.
And I think financially it saved a ton of money. We were just churning. We were bleeding. I thank you.
Hmm.
Does anyone want to say anything negative and try to
No.
bring us down?
Negative.
No,
For the board.
you can't even find anything negative to say, Eric. You guys are just awesome.
Very good. I'm gonna step away then.
Thank you.
I move to approve the pathway repair and maintenance program bid recommendation from Eric of Brenner Excavating.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the 2023 pathway repair and maintenance program bids. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 099-2022. Considering the resolution to adopt amendment number 2 to the agreement for township law enforcement services at the East Precinct, another very important topic. Manager Swayze?
Great, thank you. So as we all know, the Kent County Sheriff's Department currently,
Are there any public comments about the pathway committee?
So that was there wasn't a special public hearing section? Just,
Wait
it'll
until the
come up.
Okay.
Chatty Cathy, just hold your horses. You'll be there in a second. Go ahead, Ben.
all right, so we all know that we contract with the Kent County Sheriff's Department to provide contractual law enforcement services as part of the East Precinct with Ada, Cascade, and Grand Rapids Township. So the East Precinct currently funds 13 deputies. There's 12 assigned to road patrol and 1 to community policing. The deputies are responsible for general calls for law enforcement services, traffic enforcement, and a dedicated high visibility patrol presence throughout the East Precinct. However, we think there's an increased need to establish a stronger sense of community engagement, investigation, problem solving, and appropriately remedying various long-term township related issues, including code enforcement and increased demand for a focused approach to crime prevention. So as part of that, the East Precinct has proposed the addition of a second community policing officer to the East Precinct. So the community policing deputies, unlike their road patrol counterparts, don't have a fixed schedule. Allows them the flexibility to adjust to the needs of the East Precinct, attend meetings, provide educational programming, organize community outreach events, provide proactive enforcement to problem areas, and address township-related issues in a timely, effective manner. So you recall that we did have a discussion about this in fiscal year 2022. At the time, the Sheriff's Department had indicated that they wouldn't be able to start a new community policing officer until the beginning of fiscal year 2023. In the meantime, we had conversations about whether that position would be solely in Cascade Township or be split between the three communities. We've come to agreement that the position, just like our current community policing officer, would be split between the three communities. The cost of the entire position is $128,259, which includes the vehicle assigned costs of $350 per month. Based on the current formula for sharing, Cascade Township's portion would be just shy of $58,000. So as part of our budget preparation in 2023, not only did we budget for this additional position, but we included in that money in there for high visibility proactive patrols as well. So not only will we have the additional community policing officer at our disposal, but we'll continue to be able to direct the sheriff's department to provide additional Cascade specific patrols for issue areas in the township, which we're currently dedicating to high visibility. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have some comments. This came up for discussion quite a while ago, as Ben had already mentioned. Cascade is not immune to crime rise. We have it every day. One of the board members here experienced it yesterday or day before, I don't recall which, at our township park of all places, broad daylight, middle of the day. So we have always heard from the residents, their number one concern is security. Security in the form of fire protection, security in the form of police protection. So I firmly and soundly support this.
Couldn't agree more. We're very fortunate to live in Cascade, but if we're not proactive about it, with all the growing pains in the city of Grand Rapids, I don't think anything's a higher priority than this. There's some other things that you'll see in early 2023, other tools that we can use to recoup costs and also be proactive in preventing crime, but this is a great start.
At one time, the township did think about having their own police department here. As a matter of fact, constables were on the ballot. However, with all the extra costs incurred with law enforcement, it was deemed at that time to continue with the sheriff department instead of incurring those costs and liabilities by having our own police department.
Did we go over, does the public understand what the East Precinct is?
I can cover that real quick if you'd like. So in 2004, I believe, I can't remember
It doesn't matter.
Yep, so 2004, prior to 2004, 2002, sorry, prior to 2002, Ada Township, Grand Rapids Township, and Cascade Township all purchased basically one patrol car per shift of service. And that patrol car would stay in the little box of the township and respond to the needs of that community. And 2002, the communities got together and realized that it would be better if there were 3 cars available to go anywhere in the 3 townships during that time. Because there's times where there's something going on Cascade or 2 things going on in Cascade. You may need 2 cars here. There's sometimes the same thing is happening in Grand Rapids Township. And then the cost of that service is split based on the calls for service in each one of those communities. So Cascade Township does pay the lion's share of that contract because we have the lion's share of the calls for service. But it's become a great proactive measure to make sure that the resources are available to each one of the communities when they are needed. In 2008, the program was actually rolled back a little bit. There actually used to be a second community policing officer. There was a dedicated lieutenant, and then there was a dedicated detective to the East Precinct as well as a physical place. The physical place was really no longer needed because each one of those patrol cars is now its own office with a laptop and everything in it. And then some of those services, the lieutenant and the detective, we continue to get from the sheriff's department. They're just provided as part of the base program rather than something that we pay extra for. When we got back together, we did think that the loss of the second community policing officer was a true loss. That's why we're recommending it.
Any cost increase with this additional full-time officer to taxpayers?
No additional cost to taxpayers. So the police fund, based on our current tax collections, will be able to fund, as well as the full cost of the additional proactive patrols as well.
And in addition to this, last year, Cascade, Ada, and Grand Rapids Township, the three areas that make up the East Precinct, Cascade on our own, we hired, and it made a lot of sense financially, but additional specific Cascade high visibility patrols. Is that expiring at the end of this month?
So it's not. So we did include additional money in the budget to do that. So as part of our monthly meetings that we have with the sheriff's department, we'll have to have a conversation about what things that those additional high visibility patrols are doing now can be done by the additional community policing officer. And what things do we want to make sure that we continue to have the dedicated Cascade patrol officer doing, so.
So does it require any board action to take that same additional specific to Cascade extra patrol into 2023?
No, it was funded in the budget. So last year we had to make a specific action because it wasn't in the budget. This year we put it in the budget as part of our budget process, so we'll be able to continue to have those conversations with the sheriff.
Great.
I have a question. So just to clarify, Ada Township and Grand Rapids Township are having the same conversation and activity in their final meetings of the year?
Yep, so we're the last one. Grand Rapids Township approved it the first week in December, and Ada Township approved it this past Monday.
Excellent.
I move to approve the resolution to adopt amendment number 2.
Support.
So motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to improve the resolution to adopt amendment number 2 regarding township law enforcement services. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Less.
Yes, motion carried. Item 100, 2022. The 2023 board and committees and commissions meeting schedule. Manager Swayze?
Yeah, so this is just a bit of housekeeping. We need to set the meeting schedule for 2023. Primarily, all of the boards and committees and commissions have requested that their meetings stay the same in 2023 than they were in 2022. The one difference is that right now we have the standing committees of the township to be determined. We thought it would be a good idea that each one of those committees decides when they want to meet. Sometimes the Wednesday at 9 o'clock doesn't work for everybody, so we want to give those, the members that are on those committees the opportunity to possibly change that if you want. So once those are set, they will be posted as well. And then this meeting schedule is posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. And then as soon as this is approved, Jessica will be hard at work populating our township calendar with all of the meetings as well on the website.
Discussion or a motion?
Make a motion to approve the 2023 meeting schedule.
Support.
Motion by clerk Slater, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the 2023 meeting schedule. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 101, 2022, appointments to boards and commissions. I carefully considered each of these appointments and I listened to a variety of voices, opinions, and recommendations. I've also considered our current and anticipated projects and also our ongoing challenges and opportunities. There are two groups of appointments tonight. First, appointments to the different committees made up of residents, the Parks Committee, the Planning Commission, the Downtown Development Authority, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Second, and its own group is the appointments to the Township Board's standing committees. So we will start with the first group. The resident committees. This was not easy. There's no clear-cut answer because for every person who gets appointed, there's a person who doesn't. But I firmly think this is the best thing for the township, given where we're at. So motion or discussion on the various boards and commissions made up of residents.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that, when I first went on the planning commission, Mike Julian was supervisor. You know, he met with me and asked my resume and passed around. and talk to me and then ask me to attend the board and express my feelings as what I thought would be my value to the township and how it would serve in the planning commission. And I just think it'd be, I don't know how we lost that practice, or I don't know if everybody did it. I assume they did. But over in the future, not for these folks, because, you know, we can't put them on the spot. But in the future, I think it would be really useful when we want to appoint somebody, the planning commission or the ZBA or the DDA, that we ask them to come for 5 minutes, you know, to be totally transparent and explain why they think they should be on the committee or the commission and their role. And I just think that we would get much more of a feel for them as well, and it would be open to the public. So it's just something for consideration for the future, because that's what I went through and I thought it was a good process.
I think that Tom's got a good point going forward. I certainly would like to know more about our committee appointees than what I do. At least we got a little bit of information about them. And in the past, we've always had difficulties getting people onto our committees. And that might be a step to eliminate that too.
Currently, we're not having that difficulty, but I think those are both great points.
Okay. I said my piece.
I don't know how you want us to take these all one at a time or all at once, but I think I asked the same question last year. There's reappointments, it looks like on a DDA.
All of those are reappointments. There's a current vacant seat.
Yeah, I see that. And that's,
Mr. Corky Reynolds, he passed away earlier this year, so that's been vacant for a while. So, yeah, they're both reappointments.
and zoning board of appeals, it looks like Jennifer Paplava, I think I said that right, is reappointed.
Yep.
And it looks like Matt Douglas is Parks. What about, we have two people, Deidre Deering, and Ben Rappin, who are planning commissioners now. It shows on our website that Deidre is the current secretary and Ben is a member. Did those people not want to serve?
No, I talked to both of them. They weren't easy conversations, but those are my appointments and not an easy decision, but I think that the new residents are all, it's not a matter of, it's what's doing, sometimes the best decisions are the hard decisions, and I'm confident that this is the way to go.
The one discussion we had.
And it's, wait, time out. It's not anti anyone. Ben Rappin has been fantastic, putting so much time in, and I feel terrible. Because it has nothing to do with personal, with people, but there are a lot of pressing big issues right now that this is the right way to go.
Comment? I see that the proposed people have got actually a very nice wide spans of interests. Mr. Richardson has lived in Cascade and he's out in a rural area apparently, so that means a lot for the rural residents of the township that he can also represent. And I'm sorry, Ryan, if I mispronounce his name, but he's a professional on the commercial industrial side. So he can represent those very well too. And by changing people occasionally, you get new ideas, fresh ideas. Our township is changing. We need to change some of our ideas, the way we do things too. That's all I have.
I have a comment. I've had an opportunity to serve with both Ben and Deidre on the planning commission. They both have done a wonderful job. So that's certainly not a reason why they're being, I guess, removed. There's other people that want to serve. There's a list of residents that want to get involved and served. Both of these people have completed their terms with no issues. They've done a great job, but they're not lifetime appointments. There's other residents that want to get involved, and this is the opportunity for that to happen. That's all I have.
I think representation in the southeast quadrant of the township is critical right now. And I had at-length conversations with both of these appointments. And I think we were very fortunate to have the two members whose terms expired naturally. And we were very fortunate to have these two new reappointments wanting to serve also. So it's a hard thing to have to do, but we are in a good spot.
I don't know how long they have served. Do you? Does anybody?
3 years.
1 3-year term?
When they were on the planning commission for a year before I was elected supervisor.
And we talked a little bit, I think, last year about gender diversity, and we, this way we're gonna have one female representative, and Wendy, if we approve these, right? And none, all the rest guys. Okay.
Are we looking to approve these committees one at a time then?
I say just, if you like, I put
So we have the Parks Committee,
I figured we would put, this is the first section. It's the 2023 the resident committees and commissions. The second one will be the board standing committees. So I'm putting these all up right now as a group.
oh, okay. Oh, personally, I don't have any problem with the committees that I'm serving on. Been there before, done that before, so that's all I have to say about that.
So are you doing the parks planning
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're doing the parks planning, ZBA, DDA, all as one,
is one?
take a vote, then we'll separately we do the committee structures.
Thank you.
Okay,
Further discussion? Motion?
I make a motion to adopt these new personnel onto the various committees as designated or as assigned.
Meeting approve the supervisor appointments as written?
Correct.
Second.
Sorry, minute taker has a question. I thought we were doing it separately.
The
So-
two sections, one,
Okay.
the residents, two, the board.
So he's saying the resident.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by clerk Slater to approve the proposed appointments to the Parks Committee, the Planning Commission, the Downtown Development Authority, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yay.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Next, the board standing committees. Careful consideration on this one also, and I recommend the appointments as a group for the Personnel Finance Committee, the Infrastructure Committee, the Public Safety Advisory Committee, and the Governance Committee.
I'd just like to start a discussion to say, I was all for this structure, when we adopted it in 2016. And I know, and I got to credit supervisor for saying, do we really need committees? Shouldn't this be more transparent, doing it in front of the public? And I didn't think so at first, but now that we've done the last year without committees, I don't think we need the committees. I like the fact that we do it all now at the board meetings, in the public. And I know we asked our legal counsel at the time what their thoughts were on having individual committees. And he said, well, it's perfectly fine, but kind of what happens is they do work on their own. And even though they're only advisory, they kind of become their own decision makers and pass on those recommendations, which are typically adopted. So I think, again, credit to you, Grace, we've done a good job without the committees. So I would almost say no to them and just keep it open for purposes of transparency and openness, keep it at the board level.
The only thing I'd add to that is why I worked so hard to bring the subcommittees up to comply with the Open Meetings Act, meaning they're available for the public to attend They're noticed on our calendar so people know when to attend. And then our notes, what was discussed are publicly published on our website. So, but other than that, yeah, thank you.
Comment? Tom, you're absolutely correct. Couldn't agree with you more. Subcommittees were developed for those of you that don't know it. Where are you going, Driscoll? Sit back down.
Oh, John, you poor guy.
The guy may have to go.
That's right.
Oh, he used to work on my crew. I know what he's up to. These standing committees were developed to shorten the township meetings and to smooth out and answer any questions that there might be between the township board and the members that are on there. Personally, I'm here as long as it takes to do the job. I like what Tom said, for instance. It's out in the open. We get involvement from the residents of the township as well. So Tom, you're spot on.
I make a motion to approve the committees as presented.
I'll second.
That's a motion by Clerk Slater to approve the Township Board Standing Committee appointments. Seconded by, I'm sorry, Trustee Nordhook. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
No,
trustee Kessel,
I like Tom's idea, so I'll say no.
clerk Slater, no. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Since it's a tie, the motion failed. So we will figure out another way to just keep moving forward, but I like your ideas too, Tom. Items for discussion, we have none, so public comments, anything, whether it's on the agenda or not, try to limit it to 3 minutes, but got to race each other to the podium.
Here I go again. Rick Brown, proud resident of Cascade Woods and Cascade Township for 35 years. If I go back a bit to her predecessor, and I complained about Cascade Peace Park and the pathways for probably 2 or 3 years. Never got a response. She started to run. Don't know how I ended up with her email, but I did. And through so much dissatisfaction with the parks and the pathways, and pardon my linear interest, but that's where it is. I'm an outdoors person, biking, hiking, running, used to run, walking. Her interest was extensive. And I was hoping that that interest would continue. And I was hoping she would be elected. She was. Her interest did not diminish one bit. And I continued to voice my dissatisfaction with those 2 areas, probably ad nauseum. And she was patient, persistent, responsive. What? I'd never, ever communicated with a township supervisor in my entire life prior to her predecessor in Grace. Then she asked me to serve on a committee. What? Never considered. No, I don't do that stuff. I'm not political. I don't do that stuff. But I was I've been a backpacker and a hiker and an outdoors person for many, many years. And I wanted to see this improve, not just for me, but for the residents of the township. So I said, she asked me, would you like to serve on the committee? Yes. Didn't even think about it. Yes. Slam dunk, I'll do it. The success of any organization, and I've been a hospital corporate person for many, many years, is so dependent on
30 seconds.
the talent of the management team. I give her, Ben, Eric, so much credit Beautiful team, committed, smart, dedicated. The committee members for both, and I'm not a member of a Parks Committee, but that woman asked me my input to that committee as well, which I was more than happy to provide. I'm going to ignore the 3 minutes. I'm
Time's up.
sorry. So hats off to, and all of you for approving what you've done, for listening and being part of this team. Hats off to you.
Thank you. We're getting there. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thanks for all your dedication too.
Hello, I'm Jeff Coffey. I think I'm one of the few that have lived in all 3 school districts in Cascade. That aside, having lived in the 3 different areas, I'd really like to see Cascade continue its growth to building a true community. And part of building that community is the bike paths. And so we're off to a great start. I thank you for the funding on improving the safety of the bridge. And I'm sorry, I missed that part of the discussion. So, but other funding that's going to be improving the bike paths. And I'd also like to put in a plug for expanding the bike path network to rural roads that are currently very dangerous for the residents that live in the individual homes and neighborhoods that are connecting to the rural roads within Cascade. It's very dangerous. I walk those roads myself. And I've got a lot of neighbors that walk those roads. It's truly very dangerous when you're walking on a road with no shoulder, traffic going 55, 60 miles an hour, over hills. And I'd like to see that network expanded as we move on through the next few years. But thank you for the funding, and I look forward to future growth.
Thank you.
Brian Holcomb, 3415 Glenstone Court Southeast. Good evening, board members, trustees, and I guess you too, Ben. I've never said that, but everybody votes but him, so he's not a trustee, he's not a board member, or he's so.
Trustees are elected in
Right.
the township, and then
So didn't mean to leave him out in the past, but I'll add him this time. A couple months ago, I requested some information about our speed limit sign. I was told that it was going to be on Cascade Road next. We own our own. Then it would be put on Thorn River between Thorn Hills and 36 and Thornapple, Thornapple. Haven't seen it there yet. I forgot to ask how long it gets put in a certain place. Because if it's only a couple days, I could have missed it, but that's why I want to ask, because I haven't seen it yet between Thorn Hills and 36th Street. Still got a lot of traffic going down the hill coming up, and they're flying
Yep, I will ask Omar for an update. It typically goes out 3 days.
for 3 days.
Sometimes it goes out 5 days, depending on how fast they can move it. So I'll have to follow up with Omar and see if it did make it out, and if it didn't, make sure that it does get on the schedule.
Okay, and I would say 5 days would probably be better, just so people see it if they're on that road more than one day going to or coming back. And thank you for looking into that. Also, I'd like to know if you've got an update on the Eagle. They were supposed to respond. Don't know if they have, and when they do respond to Eagle, will Cascade Township get any type of information from what they say?
So as far as I know, they have not responded yet.
Okay,
I didn't talk with Corey this week. I did talk with her last week. They hadn't gotten anything yet, but she did indicate when they do get a response, they will review it first, but then they will release it to us as well, so that us and our legal team can review it, and I will share it with you as well.
okay, because I know
when
in there,
does it due?
It's due January 3rd.
I do know also that in the PUD, the original one that Cascade Township issued or authorized or whatever, it says in there that they're not allowed to depreciate surrounding properties. Last month on November 16th, I read a report from one of the neighbors on the Centennial side that he was trying to split his property, and
30 seconds.
it was depreciated because of that location and what they had done. There's other people that can also present that. So I feel as though there are issues that Cascade Township needs to address. Because we all know that Eagle might take another 6 months to a year to do something. So we should be working with Eagle. Some things are, I think, a township thing. Other things can go along with
Time's up.
Eagle.
I have, if you could share those reports with me, that would be great. I'd like to take a look at them.
Okay.
Andrew Swayze, could you give us, put it just along those lines? The scope, if that's in the PUD, if the scope is allowed to expand, and also the issue of the depreciation, I just don't. You don't have to do it now, but I want to hear about it too, because it's my understanding, same use generally, but massive expansion.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to prepare a report
Yes.
to share with everybody. I don't want to start off tonight. I don't have enough expertise in the actual PUD to talk about it, but we'll put together a report and I'll make sure it gets in the packet in the January meeting.
Great, thank you.
So can we add it to the next agenda? 2
Yeah,
weeks
at a
or
minimum,
4? I
the-
know with the
dis-
holidays coming up, I don't know when the next one is.
Let's put it on the agenda, discussion section for the next agenda.
January 11th.
And
Okay,
if we need to have a board action, we'll bump it up to there too, but let's just start with a firm report at the next January meeting.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone virtually? Oh, or in person or both?
Ken Vandercock, 7200 Layton. I got a couple of questions. We're gonna have a park department and the fees that they're gonna charge at the parks. Where's that money gonna go? Into the general fund or the parks department or what?
Good question.
Yeah, so that's something that the committee will have to come up with the format and make the recommendation to the township board. So if there is a millage that funds the Parks Department, it is required that that money goes into a separate fund dedicated for whatever the millage says it's dedicated for. So then the board will have to make a decision, because right now, the Parks is just a department of the general fund. So the revenues are associated in the general fund as well. You know, if we do end up passing a parks millage, then, you know, probably can make the connection that those revenues should probably be going into the parks fund rather than into the general fund. But that does need to be all worked out as that millage is considered and that fund is developed.
So say January 2023, we start collecting those fees, they go where?
So the millage
No.
definitely goes in the fund. The board will have to make a decision on where the rental fees go. I could say with certainty, at least from the administrative department, that I'm probably recommend that those related rental fees go into that parks department as well. But ultimately it'd be the board's decision to decide that.
Okay, Cascade Townships in the inspection business. Where does their money go?
Back to them.
Back to them? And how much of a bondage do we have to cover for them every year?
So the township doesn't contribute any money to the building fund. It's the opposite. The building fund contributes money to the township general fund.
They contribute money back to the general fund?
Just to recoup costs that the township has expended paying for legitimate costs, admin stuff, but we don't make any profit,
But they do.
but they're not allowed to spend it. Technically, yes, they do.
They do, but
It's just sitting there and we're trying to figure out how to tap into it legally.
I can say, because they're holding on to the money and not contributing to the general fund, are they? We're contributing to the bonding for these people for Plainfield Township and whoever else we're doing. We're inspecting their property, aren't we?
We're inspecting their property, but the fees from those inspections cover those costs. There's no township general fund money that goes into the building fund.
30 seconds.
I had some mechanical inspections this summer there, and the guy was there for 5 minutes. And it cost a lot less than what it did to do that. So they're making some money on a deal. I was in mechanical business for 40 years and I know what it does. And he walked in there and took one look and he was in and out of there in 5 minutes. And it just seems like they're overcharging, and then they're taking the money and putting it in their own little pot and holding on to it and not putting it into the general fund.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Okay.
We can get you a lot more information on this.
I would like to, please.
And trustee Nordhook and I have a meeting with the building department director tomorrow morning. There's just a lot of questions and it's not a straightforward issue, so. Good questions. It's not going anywhere. It's not being misused.
No, but they're holding it in their own separate from the general fund.
If any of our Zoom participants would like to speak during this section of public comments, please raise your hand. Supervisor Lesperance.
Okay, manager comments, anything?
I just want to say that we're having a bi-weekly construction project meeting over at the fire station project. It's going along very well. We're actually probably about 3 weeks ahead of schedule right now. We initially didn't think we were going to be able to put in underground utilities until the spring, and we were able to do it this fall. So things are going well, and we're on pace to finish at least on budget, if not under budget, and on time. That's all I have.
Manager, or sorry, board member comments. Trustee Shipley.
As always, I have to stand up and thank you for joining our meeting tonight. Anybody out there in Zoom land, the same thing. Mr. Vanderclock, it's nice seeing you at our meetings on a regular basis. Mr. Holcomb, the same thing. Wish we had more answers for you tonight on your concerns. I was just happy to see that Eagle finally reply.
I was surprised in a good way. Then, the I-96 construction, and if you go out Whitneyville where they cut, what is it, a little area, access area, where they took down a bunch of trees. I don't want to forget about it, and I will. Next month, can we get a status on contacting MDOT or how we're going to replace those trees and get the buffer, some of the buffer back for the noise and wind? Okay, thank you.
I'd like to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I look forward to a good 2023.
You as well, Jim. And everyone here.
Sorry, like the black even.
That, yeah. Discussion or motion?
I make a motion to dismiss the board and its residents from this commitment since we have completed all assigned tasks.
I'll second.
Motion by trustee Shipley, first time ever to adjourn, supported by clerk Slater. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried.
Oh, every time.
Thank you. We're getting there.
Hey.
So are you all set? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So you're stuck or no, if you want. She's still reviewing the general agreement. Touch base with that.
No, this is me.
Inspection. You don't have to do it. Figured it was not general. The conference a lot. Keep it going.
Why don't we want it to be a building?
Yeah, technically, then after.